Riveting content. Empowering your life. Welcome to The Sphere. This episode is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. For more information on increasing your cash flow, becoming your own money manager, and to schedule your complimentary personal finance strategy, contact the Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463. Looking to advertise? Join the Sphere's vast demographic reach of thousands of people all over the world. Send an email today to advertise@thesphere.tv or call us at area code 832-772-7789. Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, Dr. Ashandra Batiste understands that one of the biggest obstacles is dental fear. The vision at Elite Dental Wellness is to ensure every patient is treated with respect, ultimate care, patience, and love. Call us today to make an appointment at area code 713-789-8680.
Welcome back to InJustice on the Sphere Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's mine with a Y because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Joined as always by the lady with all the answers, Alicia Ford. How are you, Alicia?
Thank you. I'm doing well today. I am not the lady with all the answers, but I am the co-host here on InJustice on the Sphere TV. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ali on Sphere. And Brennan, you ready?
I am. I guess we're going to jump over and start it off in Detroit, in D-Town, the 313.
Okay.
Just the other day, the FBI rescued 19 children and 12 pimps were arrested in the Detroit area after a sting that included over 500 police officers going in to different various places, casinos, hotels, everywhere that pimps are and the pimps and hoes are likely to be to commit to this sting operation. Now, there were a number of people, I think 150 pimps in total were arrested in this sting operation, and over 19, at least 19 children were rescued at least in the Detroit area. Now, first and foremost, congratulations to law enforcement officials for doing their job and doing it well. In executing to get these children out of harm's way. That being said, I don't think that these prostitutes live a life that we should condemn, nor should we moderate. That being said, I also think that if prostitution was legal, we wouldn't have this culture that caters towards children as much because and I say as much, it's still going to cater to children, but I say as much because there are a lot of children, I think, that would go to the police if they thought they wouldn't be in trouble. And I think that the culture itself, these aren't the most savvy of people that are usually getting picked up to do this. And once they're in this game, I think there's this one, there's a stigma that goes to it. And two, there's the fear that, well, if I say something, I'm going to be the one getting in trouble. All of these reasons to me suggest, and I've been in trials before where the prosecutors will tell the jury, don't look at this as a victimless crime because it really isn't. But in most instances, I think it is.
Stop.
In the name of love.
This is not love. Just stop. No,
well,
I mean,
sex
when
is
we're
rarely
thinking
love.
about it, why am I here today? When you really think about it, the reason why is because this is very important because, I mean, when you're thinking about it, it's sex trafficking leading into human trafficking and allowing people and the most vulnerable children and people who are down on their luck, with the inability to be pimped out on the street. And I can't say that the thought that legalizing prostitution is going to make it any more of a great profession. I can't say that, you know what, let prostitutes prostitute and people won't pimp them and treat them as badly because they're going to unionize and then get a prostitution union and they're going to, no. I just think that at this point in this form, although it is the oldest business in the world, it's still one where you have to think about the fact that the youngest child in this entire thing was 12 years old. And so that means that they are preying on the weak, the downhearted, the downtrodden. And I can't say that I'm comfortable at this time legalizing that profession, if you want to call it so.
See, I feel like most nefarious acts are enticing because of their illegality. You know, there's a lot of money to be made underneath the table, black markets. You do that kind of thing, it becomes the notoriety of it breeds a sense of well, I want to get into that too, because look, I don't have to go pay taxes on it. I can do whatever I want to, and at the end of the day, I make my money. I think that when you legalize something like prostitution, the same way you legalize certain types of drug use, you take the power away from those who would do the exploitation to a significant degree. And I'm not saying that every pimp is gonna turn over a new leaf and become a businessman, but I guarantee you, the women who a lot of the women that end up in these organizations, they end up there because they feel like they have nothing else to offer, nowhere else to go. If you legalize something that they've already been a part of, then I think that gives them a different way of saying, you know what, I don't need you, because I mean that's a pimp's selling point. You know, hey baby, I can help you make this money. I can do this for you. Well, if I get to do it, you know, I know the ins and outs of this. I've been doing this a while. I know how to get away from the police officers. Well, shit, I can go make some money. I got a dude who's already in the business. He sounds good. All of that jazz. If you take his spiel away from him and put it in the hands of somebody else that maybe has a little bit more of their interest at heart, I think it takes away the power, at least some of the power that the pimps have.
I mean, prostitution is just about legal in Amsterdam, but there are still people who illegally prostitute themselves. I mean, so at the end of the day, it's not something that's just solved by legalizing it.
I didn't say it was. Never did I say it was solved, though.
Because the ones in Amsterdam, for example, have to get licenses to do that. And don't you think that there are still going to be people who are going to go out and say, hey, you know what? I'll do it cheaper because you don't have to worry about her overhead. You know, like I think it's just the nature of the act that is, and I'm not talking about I'm not saying sex is a bad thing. I'm saying that paying for sex or soliciting sex from strangers, just the nature of it and the connotation of it, it is per se two consensual people, but I believe that
it's not just per se. It
is two consensual people, but there's a missing element there sometimes that I think
love,
and that exactly
knowing your name,
and that I think leads to a different type of interaction, which is one that no matter how much we want to regulate it or think that if we do put a price on it, that a man isn't just going, because you have to realize that if you were to pay for me as a prostitute, I am an object. And so then my body then becomes an object. And I believe
you're a commodity. I think there's a difference between you're not an object, you're a commodity, you're a service.
I am an object because I am not seen as still a human person. You are just there to do whatever. So that disconnect, I think, can lead to a lot more. And that's why, as far as physical abuse of these women, even if it were to be legalized, because at the end of the day, she's not my wife. She's just this woman who prostitutes herself.
See,
so
and those are things
I can do whatever I want to her.
You make some
and
good
I think
points.
It's just the thought of, this is just something that I don't believe is ever going to be something that we can truly wrap our heads around to make it legal or okay, or in a way where we can put, you know, the brothel next to the church, next to the school.
You make some good points and raising some good points as far as the dangers that come with prostitution. Guaranteed, some of these prostitutes, don't go to the police, because I can't go to the police and say, hey, this man beat me while I was committing this illegal act. Women don't want to go forward and say something like that, because they're like, well, you just admitted to an illegal act, so great, we're gonna go get this guy, but at the same time, we're gonna get you too. And then you also have this thing called regulation. What happens when you regulate something? You give protections to the people. Hold on, I'll let you talk. I'll let you talk, Alicia.
I just have to.
No. You give a regulation. When you have regulations set in place, you now give women a sense of protection, saying, if I can now set my boundaries on what I want, and if you violate those boundaries, guess what? You're in a log. I've got your name. I've got your card information. I can go to the authorities and say, this is what happened. X, Y, and Z did this, that, and the third. Go get him. You don't have protection when you're doing stuff underhanded. Thieves can't call the police and say, hey, this other thief just stole my stolen goods. You can't do that. But when you regulate it, you give people a sense of, now I have a sense of propriety in what I'm doing. I'm a business owner, a legalized business owner, and when you do something to me, I can go to the proper authorities for it.
So I guess whenever I get to utopia with you, then I'll enjoy whatever it is that
that's
you just
not
proposed.
Utopia. That's
that
the
is
law.
Utopia, because in it is the law that a man should go to jail for raping a woman. But why? There is something called victim shaming and stigmatizing women because she did it, she deserved it, she wore it. Look at how she looked at him. And so you don't think that now these women who did not ask to be assaulted, and I'm just using an example. You don't think that in converse, the police will even be less likely to then prosecute this man that beat me while I'm performing my job, because, well, you get paid to have sex. That just comes with it. So I can't really say that in a patriarchal, male-centered world that women are truly going to have all of these remedies that you would like to dole out to us when we don't have regular remedies for assaults. So much less if it's legalized sex, we're going to have even less remedies for that. So I can't really agree with you in that respect. That's why I say, well, when you get to Utopia, you let me know so I could join you there, because I just don't believe.
And yet and still, women that are raped are still finding justice for these rapists and them getting sent to prison. Does every rape end in a conviction? No. But also, I think you're misleading this issue, because when you're talking about rape, in and of itself, unless it's an assaultive rape, something that has some semblance of violence to it, it's going to be hard to prove one way or the other. The woman could be lying, the man could be the man could be lying. It doesn't matter either way, but those are hard issues. When you talk about a woman in a setting where she's saying, I was beat by my client, well, guess what? There's usually physical evidence when you're talking about a beating or something of that nature. So it's not the same as just every old rape scenario, and with all due respect to the women who have been raped, and I'm saying the everyday rape scenario, in as much as
everyday rape scenario. He's sorry.
No, I'm not sorry about what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the assaultive rape cases, you are more likely to get justice found than the ones where it's a question of consent. What I'm saying is,
even in those cases, as easy as there's so much proof and there's so much this and there's so much that, and it still may not lead to a conviction, there's going to be a less likelihood if the woman is a prostitute, is my point.
And there's going to be at least going to be more people that can be prosecuted. Even if it goes from 0 to 20%, guess what? That's 20% more men or women that go to jail for doing something that they would have never been in jail for in the first place.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Well, we do it all the time.
We sure do.
This portion of the show is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. Did you know that only 4 states in the United States offer financial education? 33%, or more than 77 million Americans, don't pay their bills on time. 39% of Americans carry credit card debt from month to month, and 39% of adults say that they don't have enough savings. Don't become one of these statistics. Let Houston Housewives of Finance advise you on increasing your cash flow and becoming your own money manager by scheduling your complimentary personal financial strategy. Contact Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463 or email them at info@HoustonHousewivesOfFinance.com. Ask us how you can participate in a complimentary financial literacy workshop near you. Houston Housewives of Finance is the new face of the new age of financial services. Now, we're still in this acts of nefariousness. And we're going to go over to the Jersey area, where a federal judge in Newark has refused to dismiss the corruption case against Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey, turning aside a defense argument that the bribery law did not reach the Democrats' alleged crimes. If you recall, the Supreme Court just issued a ruling last year in the McDonald case that said that government officials aren't guilty of taking bribes unless they're actually doing it while taking an official action, which gets us to this stream of benefits theory, saying that, well, on one hand, the Supreme Court has explicitly said, unless you can prove that the money that was given led to an action in the official capacity of that particular elected official, it's not bribery. But there's this other theory called stream of benefits, saying that over time, if you're giving somebody a certain amount of money, you're quote unquote bribing them, and they are acting to influence in their capacity, then that's the same thing. And this is that fine line distinction. And many pundits are saying that, well, the Supreme Court, kind of did away with the stream of benefits theory. This particular judge has said, no, the Supreme Court didn't speak on the stream of benefits theory at all. It was talking about direct action. So we're moving forward with this case. At any rate, regardless of who wins out, I think it's despicable that these guys in power get to do whatever they want to without being held to task. And the Supreme Court, in its conservative nature at this point, I think is yet again protecting the big guys who do the devilish things, while the little guys who do the questionable things are the ones who end up paying the most for it.
Well, I think in this case, I don't see how him saying no, this is still a crime, is letting him go. Actually, it sounds like he's saying like,
they're not letting him go. I'm saying that the Supreme Court because there was actually another elected official who they dismissed the case against, saying that, well, the McDonald case kind of speaks on this, so you're good and clear.
Well, and I think maybe that this is just them trying to set a precedent, like that is not acceptable. And if we are the people that are to challenge these things, if the Supreme Court says, well, look, if we feel that unfortunately we feel they can still incorrectly decide, then I think then that is leading us to challenge on every minutia. And in this case, they decided to pull out something that was not directly addressed by the Supreme Court and say that it still has merit, which is a good job, because at the end of the day, we have too many people in power, as you said, using that power to further their own goals and ends and not really look out for the people that brought them there. I mean, at the end of the day, power is a drug for these men, and this is really what's keeping them in office, not the thought of actually helping their constituents or doing anything in a likeness for promoting a progressive and more unified society. It's more so like, how long can I stay in this cushy job with these two constituents who I know are going to vote because they are early voters? And how long can I get this government check? And how can I get some lobbyist money and some other money to keep me in here? That's really what it has turned into, because when I thought about it this morning, I said, what is America coming to when the Republicans are going to try to pass a bill without any Democratic support? And I said, that's ridiculous, because we should have two sides weighing in on something to find a common ground for the American people, not one party trying to usurp or oust another in order to make their agenda happen. And this is kind of what we're having a lot of the time with these politicians. So, I mean, they're right to bring him to task, and I hope they bring more of them to task.
And you might wonder, well, what did the senator do that was so bad? There was one person in particular that he was dealing with, Dr. Melgen. This Dr. Melgen had, over the course of years, has asked for different favors. At one point, Dr. Melgen was accused of overbilling Medicare for $8.9 million. Mr. Menendez asked who the chief of staff was at the Department of Health and Human Services and suggested certain things that should happen. There was another instance where there were two young ladies who needed visas, and Mr. Menendez talked to the ambassador and assuaged, some people's fears, so to speak, on the subject, influencing, but not quote unquote direct official action, but using his stature in Congress to get the job done for a certain amount of favors.
I can't talk to anybody to try to take these Sallie Mae loans away. And this, just on my behalf, that's what I would love.
Look,
but
if you're gonna do it, and here's I don't have a problem with people doing wrong. If you're gonna go do wrong, just don't leave a trail. Give me my cash and unmarked
guys,
bills.
So I'm gonna just clean up what he just said just a second ago.
I'm dirty.
I believe
I like mud
I
bags.
would hope with everything that is good in my soul today, tomorrow, and going on into the future that you did not really mean that you don't have a problem with people doing wrong. It does keep him employed.
Certain kinds of wrong.
But
financial. If you try to get your money, honey. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with you
with white collar crime, like
yourself.
Ponzi schemes that took away the millions
I prefer
of money.
the term black collar crime. Why should white people get all the good collars? I just don't understand it. But
I don't understand you.
That being said, Facebook, we
don't.
want to make sure that we thank you. In Facebook Live, we ask that you subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Review our show on iTunes with constructive feedback, and share this Facebook post and the entire show with your friends and family. And don't forget, we need cash, coins, and credit cards. Donate to our mission to bring enriched and inspiring content each and every week. You can donate at www.thesphere.tv/donate. We want to thank you, Facebook Live, for joining us. You can watch the rest of the show. Go to www.thesphere.tv and look at the rest, and make sure you tell your friends and family that boy good and that girl greater.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, I didn't want to hear your mouth later.
Oh my gosh.
So we are going to now jump over to, what are we going to talk about? Oh, something that really irritated me when I heard about this situation. This was a hospital in Georgia. A hospital in Georgia has pushed back the kidney transplant surgery for a 2-year-old boy after a parole violation by his father, who is the donor. The father was 100% match. And while he was in custody, the hospital had no problems with moving forward with this surgery. When he gets out, because he was back in jail because he had violated parole and was charged with possession of a gun. Once he got out, the hospital said, well, we're going to have to wait and see if you comply with your parole for at least 3 months. If you comply with your parole for 3 months, then we'll move forward with this surgery. Now, it disgusted me, it baffled me, and it enraged me. How dare this hospital take on the task of being this daddy's daddy, one, this daddy's parole officer, two, and the entity that stops this little boy from being able to live a healthy lifestyle just because you don't like a situation. This man has served his time. There's an institution called the prison system that tries to do its best to let the good ones out, bring the bad ones in. We know we have our issues with the system, but it's not for the private company to decide what's right and wrong in terms of the penal system. And I think that they overstepped their bounds in this regard. And if you're talking about a hospital where the Hippocratic Oath says, first do no harm, I don't see how you're holding true to that by denying this little boy his father's kidney.
So obviously this administrator is just not smart. Just on the face of the entire argument, you want to wait 3 months to see if he's going to comply with parole. Well, you can knock him out of half of that by letting him go through surgery. He'll be down for all of 6 weeks to 2 months of that, just recovering from losing an entire kidney and donating it to his child. So I can't in good conscience see what was going on here, other than it's some kind of PR spin with the hospital, and they're getting into something over there where they're getting a little bit of backlash from somebody for this to be a kind of stuff. Because I'm just saying, like, if you knock somebody out for surgery and you take out their kidney, they're going to be down for the count for a while. And if you want to make sure they don't do anything, well, where is he? He's in the bed recovering.
Well, I think the key thing for me that resonates is the fact that you were okay with the surgery while he was in custody, while he had the title of inmate. But when he had the title of parolee, a guy who's free to live his life, you wanted to put restrictions on him. Don't we already have enough restrictions in this life? And especially as a parolee, don't you already have enough things stacked against you? You can't get a job. You can't vote. People look at you like, I know what you did. People, as soon as somebody hears, oh, you're a felon, they shirk their shoulders and walk away from you as if you're taboo or you have something.
And what what it doubly sounds like is it doesn't even sound like inmate prison parolee now that I think about it. It sounds like cost of care. And we don't want the cost of care for us. So if something happens with this and we have to keep them in here, who's the hospital billing?
So you think they're banking on him violating his parole?
Well, no. I'm saying if he's an inmate, the cost of care is being delegated to the state. If he is now on parole, it's now he's out.
Well, they said they were going to wait 3 months to see if he could comply with his.
Well,
parole.
no, but I'm saying that he's still the one. If something happens or something goes wrong, they still have to bill against what, right? But if he's an inmate, they bill against the state because then they have to take them into into their care and custody. And if something happens, they bring them back and they bill the state again. So now that I'm thinking about it, I really don't think it has anything to do with the fact that he's a free man per se, or that he has not served his time. It's more so the hospital sounds like it's looking at its own bottom line here, where they're like, we know for sure if he's an inmate, we gonna bill the state and we're gonna get our money. If he's not an inmate and he has to come back here, or the cost of care is going to fall on him paying it, we're not going to see that money. And that's, to me, is a problem, because now who's caught in this, which I'm thinking this bottom line backlash, is a 2-year-old who needs a kidney.
Well, it's ridiculous, and I think ridiculousness pervades our country, and we see that again in how we decide to exercise laws and how we decide to interpret laws. One of those being the law over in California, where we have a Woodland teacher at a Woodland High School in California area who was put on leave and escorted out of the school after a kickoff rally on Friday, October 13th. Wendy Pappas, a chemistry teacher, was seen holding 2 signs during a rally. One sign said, "Black Lives Matter, my sister," and the other said, "It is okay to disagree with any sign here." I mean, it's hard enough when black people can't do what they want to do, but when you got good white women that can't kneel for justice, what is this world coming to? Please answer.
I don't have any answers for you with that segue into talking to me.
Well, your life still matters, though, Alicia.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I will address the fact that they are restricting her free speech, and that should not, and she shouldn't have been at paid leave for kneeling. If that's what she wants to do, that's her constitutional right.
Well, I'm just flabbergasted that you would tell any white person that they're not allowed to speak. I thought that was reserved for us.
Brennan, let's not today.
But let's
not.
Let's talk about the question first. I think actually you need to get some coins done, so we'll continue in just a moment.
Yes, because I would like you to know that this portion of the show is sponsored by The Sphere. Are you starting your business and looking for a place to advertise? Do you need to reach out to thousands of people across the world to build your brand or sell your product? If so, get your product placement and advertising needs handled right here at The Sphere. We offer a wide variety of content delivery platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. And we're also now on iHeartRadio. Plus, we have a vast demographic reach within the United States as well as modern countries across the globe. Our enriched content and inspiring dialogue coupled with your strategic ad is surely to hit the mark every time. Call us today at area code 832-772-7789 or send an email over to advertise@thesphere.tv.
Now, when you talk about this particular situation, this is, and we're gonna have a couple of different articles that really gel with this First Amendment issue. It's such a dynamic and convoluted issue, in my opinion. It's hard because on the one hand, and they had the principal of the school put out an email to respond to what was going on. And in this email, the principal says, well, hey, we believe in protecting. We are aware that there was an unauthorized display. We operate under the Tinker standard, which says that students may exercise their protected free speech rights. And my computer keeps crashing on this, but basically students can exercise their particular rights, protected free rights to speech, as long as they don't cause a disturbance. However, teachers are not allowed under the education code and case law. Their personal, political, or religious beliefs are not appropriately expressed at school or in the classroom. I'm a little bit concerned because I get that you don't want these are children, for all intents and purposes, these are children that you're speaking to. You don't want to overly and unduly influence them by your own opinions. However, I think that when you're talking about issues relating to the promotion of free speech, how can you then tell this person that you are wrong in promoting free speech to children? And to say, they said their personal, political, or religious beliefs are not appropriately expressed at school or in the classroom. I don't see how telling other children Black Lives Matter and that it's okay to protest appropriately is something that should be deemed outside of the vernacular that should be appropriate for a school setting. And I think this is one of those things where Big Brother gets to watch and gets to say what they want to, while certain people have to adhere to it.
Next time she just needs to hand it off to a student and just stand right by them.
But do you think that teachers should be so censored with free speech rights?
No, because at the end of the day, she can actually, if she wanted to, she could say, I was using this as an experimental part of education where I was going to tie this back to a lesson for all of the students. And and then at that point, you are now doing a social experiment, but I'm going to tie back to whatever my lesson plan is talking about. And she could have did that all day. And I would have dared you if you can put, and this is me as an ex-teacher, I'd have dared you if you could put some educational teaks behind what you're doing to show that everything you're doing is tied back to something that you want to teach the children, that it should be a problem. Yeah, I might be a little upset. So, I don't think that they can, because there's a way that she could have done this to actually bring it in where it would have been an educational moment and it would have stepped outside of this whole personal, political, or religious beliefs context. And you can say, no, actually, I'm teaching a lesson here and this is just part of it. And so, she can still do that. And hopefully, she'll bring that into her classroom a bit more and not... It's just sad because
I think that the more we censor speech, the more we censor growth.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking about children. This isn't the kind of, to me, this was teachable.
Yeah.
She
was
teaching them in a setting of pedagogy that, look, you are allowed to speak. You are allowed to protest. Black Lives Matter just as much. And quite honestly, if there were more people like her, then we wouldn't have people like her having to do what she did.
We're really just back. We just haven't hit the bottom yet, and we're just slowly descending. It's just taking the elevator a while to get there, but we're getting to the bottom.
What?
And then
descending into what? Hell?
The belly of the nastiest parts of society. We're just like in the first stomach, but we're gonna get to that second bowel, and we're gonna really get down into the dirty nitty gritty of America, which is exposing itself right now. The bile of America is coming up to the top.
I feel like you eat chitlins.
I do not eat chitlins.
Okay, I don't know why. Spirit washed over me. Chitterling.
Dude, I can't do that.
Anyway, speaking of the bowels and the recesses of America, Colin Kaepernick has just filed a grievance against the NFL, citing that all 32 teams colluded to keep him out of the league in response to pressure by President Donald Trump. And what's interesting about this is that had Donald Trump not actually made his comments, he would have less of a leg to stand on with this collusion issue. And what I mean by that is that once Donald Trump said, look, you need to punish people that don't stand for the national anthem, what he in essence did was, as the president of the United States, dictate how free speech should be executed and put pressure on public or private entities to tell them how to dictate to their employees how to exercise free speech and the constitutional right to that First Amendment right. Now, it's going to be, and some people are saying, well, it'll be impossible to prove collusion, and that's not necessarily true because as we know, as you and I know, when you get into an actual lawsuit, this has to go through arbitration, but arbitration carries some of the same discovery processes that going into a courtroom would have. The only difference is that you're not in court; you're going before an arbiter rather than an elected official or an appointed official, that being a judge. But it's binding just as if it were in a court proceeding.
Correct.
But in this, you have this discovery process, which means that he'll be able to have the power of subpoena. He'll be able to ask for, email records. He'll be able to ask for text message records. And I guarantee you, if they have said if any 2 or 3 of these NFL owners have said anything to each other, like, yeah, I'm not going to let him in, you shouldn't either. Guess what? You now have formed the basis of collusion, and he has a leg to stand on. And if he wins, he ends up getting double.
I don't even think
what
it's
his
going to be
contract would have
that
been.
blatant. I think it's going to be more so along the lines of he's going to hurt our bottom line. And that's how he's gonna, I don't think it'll be that kind of, well, you know what, let me stop because the majority never ceases to amaze me.
Well,
but I do believe that it'll be in the sense of if he does find something, it'll be a series of it's gonna hurt, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna hurt, we can't hurt. And that kind of, setting up a scenario I believe is probably what he will find.
And quite honestly, I think he has a great circumstantial argument too. I mean, in 12 games last year that he played, he threw 16 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. I mean, that puts him head and shoulders above several other quarterbacks. And you've got quarterbacks in the league right now
who throw interceptions regularly.
Well, you've got, I don't know if anybody knows who this man is, Brock Osweiler. He was the Houston quarterback last year. He threw like a bucket of trash. And he was what we would like to call in the hood garbage. And this garbage quarterback is still playing right now. And you've got other quarterbacks that are at least trash adjacent that are still playing in this league. But people like Colin Kaepernick and people being Colin Kaepernick is not playing in this league. So when you start to compare, if you go down to and they'll get a chance to look at this, the cold hard statistics, and say, well, why is this person the only person of his caliber that's not allowed in the league right now?
I think what's so crazy about this is that people have this real jaded perception that this is disrespectful to the flag. No, you're disrespecting the United States by not allowing somebody to exercise their right to free speech. You're disrespecting this flag by by treating people poorly and not granting them access to the same systems you have. So you disrespect the flag by your inane, asinine, and biased thoughts every day, but they don't. But they don't think of it like that because this one person says you are this flag disrespected me, so I don't want to sit there and honor it the way you would like me to. And instead of, and the sad thing about it is, Colin Kaepernick consulted veterans to find out, like, hey, what would be a good way to do this? Right. What would be a way that it's not truly disrespectful in that sense where I'm not honoring the people who have died to keep me free. And someone told him you can kneel.
Well, the NFL leadership to me is very indicative and very reflective of what America looks like right now. I mean, where the good old boys at the top get to tell you exactly how to live your life and when they're going to feel comfortable with what you do and how you do it. And it rears its ugly head again with this Ezekiel Elliott case. This Dallas Cowboys star running back Ezekiel Elliott was put on a 6-game suspension by the NFL at the end of last year to be executed for the current 2017-2018 season. Mr. Elliott gained an injunction saying that they were going to put a halt on the suspension because, and Elliott said, well, look, and this all started with the fact that Elliott was, there were allegations of Elliott having committed assault on his girlfriend, but those allegations never led to a conviction, charges not there. But the NFL took it upon themselves to say, we're going to do our own private investigation, and we're going to see what we feel like might have happened. And based on their findings, they said, well, we feel like you violated NFL's conduct rules, so we're giving you a 6-game suspension as a result of the allegations that he had physically abused his former girlfriend in Ohio. So what's interesting about this is that the Fifth Circuit ended up overturning the injunction, and the reason why they overturned the injunction is because they said that this was the lawsuit had no jurisdictional basis. And what do you mean by that? Well, essentially, the Fifth Circuit said that, hey, there is a process, a contractual process that the NFL has put forward, an arbitration process that you have to go through before you can actually file a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. If you don't follow through with that process, then the court has no standing to hear your claim because you actually haven't done the preliminary stuff first. Ezekiel Elliott brought his case to the federal court before an arbitrator actually gave a ruling, and the court said, well, the arbitrator could have ruled in your favor, he could have ruled out of your favor, but you took it upon yourself to skip over that arbitrator giving a ruling and come to us. So no, you got to go back to the drawing board on this one. So this is another one of those interesting cases because it's the NFL asserting power where there's a penal system already in place. And I get that there's a difference between being right or wrong in civil court and being right or wrong in criminal court, because there's a higher burden of proof in criminal court. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that something happened. In civil court, it's more likely than not that something happened. And the NFL gets to operate kind of from this civil standard, saying that it's more likely than not that we feel like, based on the allegations, based on our own investigation, that you did some stuff. We don't need you to be charged and convicted. We just need to feel like you did something wrong. I mean, I don't know if they should have that broad breadth of power to be able to decide, especially when it's dealing with somebody's life. And I'm kind of on the fence on this one.
You can't. So for me, it's kind of like we can't keep playing both sides of the coin, right? We can't sit here and say it's wrong to have these NFL players playing and they're beating up and doing all this, but then it's wrong when we're trying to punish.
Well, I agree. And I agree. That's what I said. I'm on the fence.
Like, so it's kind of like either you get rid of who does not need to make your establishment look great, or deal with it and just deal with the public backlash. But for me, it's like you can't keep holding people, at this point. So do you think the NFL should have police power then?
I
mean, if it's their organization, if they so decide that you beat up on your girlfriend and you don't deserve to play in our organization, get out. I mean, because at the same time, we're asking them to stop this culture of machismo that allows this to continue. So you can't sit there and demand something of them when they do it, get mad that they're doing it, and tell them it's fundamentally unfair. Now, will they have to really come and set some guidelines and really put some new set of standards that need to go into all NFL contracts in regard to domestic violence? I think so. If they would solve that, if they do that, that would be great. But at the same time, they know what they're dealing with. They know the nature of the beast. So they're not going to put anything about domestic violence in contracts. And we're going to be stuck here going back and forth and really pulling their arm one way, then pull them another way. It's kind of like they're splitting the baby, but we need a whole one. You need to make a decision, and that decision needs to be fundamentally fair and carried out across the board in regard to certain situation acts of conduct that you expect your players to maintain within the NFL.
And I guess I'm so on the fence on this, because on one side, I completely agree that if the penal system isn't going to do it for you and they don't have enough to go on, you should still be punished in some kind of, hurt your pockets. If you're beating on women, if you're beating on men, if you're raping men,
if you're just beating on anybody.
Well, men and women, I think includes that,
yes,
but there may be a
yes.
third. But if you're doing wrong and hurting other people, I think you should have some kind of punishment. And if the penal system can't do it for you, then kudos to whoever can do it. Simultaneously, how much police power do we give them? For instance, with the kneeling, you now tell them, well, you know what? We don't think that it's appropriate to kneel.
I think that is different because it's fundamentally legal to kneel. It's legal to kneel. Everything that they're protesting there is like, so you can actually draw a line of illegality. Like, is
Fair
it
point.
legal to beat somebody up? No, it's not. So
in
it's
defense of yourself.
But you know what I'm saying. Like if it were a system.
Well, let's take for instance maybe.
Or assault.
Well, what about marijuana usage? Where sometimes it's legal, sometimes it's not. But
and
there
I
are
think
companies that say that we have a zero tolerance policy.
And that company may have a zero. They should have a zero tolerance policy for their players not to be. I'm sure that doesn't actually get enforced. But at the same token, they have a choice as to what they believe. Because as we're coming now, they're saying that as more states are legalizing.
So you're saying if I
or
play for Denver,
decriminalizing.
if I play for the Denver Broncos, and the NFL tells me that I'm not allowed to smoke weed, they should be able to uphold that because you just said,
no, it's decriminalized.
Okay.
So it's kind of so at the same time, I just feel like we need to look at it's legal someplace, but we need to really decide, and that is up to the NFL, what standard they want to draw because it's their organization. So if they decide that anything that can inhibit our players beyond a stretch of time that we cannot control and it may inhibit them on the field, then because if it's something that we feel that can, I don't know how long marijuana stays in your system for, but if they feel that if it's some kind of intoxicant that can stay in your system that could eventually be still in there while you're playing, then yes, I have a right to say I don't want you on that. Mm-hmm. But as far as kneeling hurts nobody because you get right back up and play unless you are just a fragile man where that kneel just broke everything about you. Then you shouldn't be playing in the first place. But something as simple as this, they can fix it. We're not allowing them to. So I'm frustrated because it's kind of like you robbing Peter to pay Paul. What are you doing here? This is why we can't get further.
So what about the argument that's being made that if police didn't find enough to follow through with charges, why should you be allowed?
Because
because there's a difference between saying we're going to punish you because you have committed a crime versus us saying we're going to punish you because we think you have committed a crime.
If we have done an investigation and found that it violates the standards of what we uphold for our organization, you don't have to be in our organization. Period, point blank. Nobody asked you to be a football player. This was your dream.
Well, but the problem with that particular sentiment is that you start to get into interpretation of language at that point because this is a contract. This isn't an at-will service that you're dealing with. These are contractual obligations.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about you haven't done what we feel is emblematic of our organization, well, how can you tell me that when I was never actually charged with something?
If we did an investigation and we found,
so you get to interpret.
I get to police my organization. Absolutely, yes, I get to police my organization.
But what if so I did something that you don't necessarily
like.
No,
but you have to think about it. You have to go. You're going in with the fundamental thought that somebody's going to try to find whatever you've done in a way that you've done it. You're going in with the thought that, or the premise that my point isn't to investigate; it's to convict. And that's not the point of an investigation, because if they investigate and they find there is not substantial information, then nothing should be done. So you're giving them the right to determine. They are all judge, the judge and jury of their organization.
And I don't know if that's fair.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a fair assessment of it, because on one side, I can't give you all the power over me.
You right. You can go do something else with your life. You got a degree too. And this portion of the show is sponsored by Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, our vision is to create a welcoming practice that will offer exceptional dental care and a lifetime of dental wellness. We are committed to the finest possible oral care and overall health and well-being of our patients. Elite Dental Wellness is built upon a foundation of integrity, expertise, and service. Through our commitment to modern dentistry, continuing education, and family-friendly atmosphere, we strive to make our patients feel like they are a part of our family. Dentistry can be scary, daunting, and uncomfortable. Dr. Batiste and her team work tirelessly to ensure your comfort. Make your appointment today with Dr. Chandra Batiste at Elite Dental Wellness at 713-789-8680.
When people use their mouths at Elite Dental Wellness, and they use their mouths to speak, and Florida's Governor Rick Scott has used his mouth to declare a state of emergency in preparation of white nationalist Richard Spencer's speech at the University of Florida on Thursday, October 19th. He issued an executive order and warned that the threat of a potential emergency is imminent in Gainesville, where University of Florida is located. This order will allow local police to partner with state law enforcement to provide security at the event, in addition to the expected $500,000 that University of Florida is going to pay for security. Governor Scott has also activated the National Guard to help with the event. The school has reportedly handed over ticketing to the National Policy Institute group that Spencer leads. Here's my problem with this. You are going to use taxpayer money to police an event and call it a state of emergency.
I think he's just trying to prevent another Charlottesville. And I think that's his main concern. I can't even say that it's more so about because I don't think that a governor is going to call a state of emergency without proper justification and a feeling from the ground that shit's about to pop off. And so I think that he's probably hearing the groundswell that's going to happen around. I mean, Richard Spencer, this is the same man that got punched in the face on TV by somebody just randomly rolling by him. I mean, so
but
at the end of the day,
taxpayers really want to say, you know what, we want to pay. We have to now shell out money to let this white nationalist racist speak at an event that we don't want him speaking at in the first place. But now I got to give you my hard-earned taxpayer dollars.
You know what? Maybe if the white nationalists if people, because it's not just white nationalists, but if people would stop giving him a platform, we wouldn't need it.
Well, but that's not. I can't stop them from getting. And then you're going against the First Amendment right.
Well, no. I'm not saying that he has a right to speak, but I'm just saying that if people would stop believing the trash he espouses as if it were true.
But I have to now pay for these people's beliefs, who in turn fuel his speech. I don't know if I feel comfortable with basically paying for his protection while he gets to spew hatred.
I'm sorry.
Well, you should be.
Okay.
And I need you to do better.
I'll
do
try.
better, Alicia.
I'll try, Brennan.
I don't know if it's in your spirit to do better.
It's not in my spirit to do better, but what it is in my spirit to do is tell everybody that we want to thank them from tuning in for this show today. Don't we, Brennan? Don't we?
I don't know if I feel like thanking them because you told me to. But I will say I appreciate.
Do you? Okay, wait, guys.
I said what I said. I appreciate the people. But
I would like the viewers to see that this is the level of antagonism I deal with on the. So
you bring me here.
That Brennan,
the devil
Brennan
get
probably
thee
agrees
me.
with me for everything
Satan.
I say, but he has an antagonistic spirit when it comes to me.
You know, when Beelzebub is a foot. You must be a shoe.
Oh my gosh. How am I to live with you? I don't. Thankfully, it's only 1 hour a week.
You live in a studio.
Oh,
I wouldn't
gosh.
care. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, as Alicia has said, for joining us on InJustice on the Sphere Podcast Network. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you call in, write in, text in, email in with your questions, comments, concerns, and we will see you next week with more news, more topics. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at Legal Mind. That's mine with a Y, because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Alicia?
And my name is Alicia Ford, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ali on Sphere. And we are so happy you joined us this week, and we hope to see you next week.
Stay tuned.
Goodbye.